chapter 1. I will join you there in just a moment. Luke chapter 1. It's a privilege to have Reverend Dolan here today. It's also a privilege to have Reverend Castle here today, all the way from Arizona. And he will be playing trumpet in our orchestra this weekend. And a privilege to have him here. Of course, he's the father of Chris and Blake Castle. And it's good to see each one of you, the rest of you here as well. Every Christmas season, I find myself remembering with fondness the Christmases from my childhood. Of course, I remember special gifts, bicycles. As you get older, you need a bigger bicycle. Thankfully, my parents would provide those when the time would come. So I remember different bicycles. A large air hockey table that we got one year, which my brothers and I had a lot of hours of fun with, along with our friends from the neighborhood. I probably am a bit rusty now, but I would say 15 years ago I could take any of you in air hockey and probably would win that match, but not so much today, I don't think. I remember a Marlin 22 rifle that I still have, actually. There were others, but perhaps more than the gifts, I think each Christmas now, I not only remember the gifts, but I think I can feel myself reaching to find again the aura of the Christmases that I experienced as a child. You know, Christmas break, 2 weeks, no school as a kid. That's a big deal. The anticipation of what that really large present was with my name on it, what that might be. That anticipation, I will tell you, does not exist in my adult world very much because we all, anybody else do this? You give your family a list of what you want and there's really no surprises, right? But you're not disappointed either because, you know, you get what you want, I guess. You don't have to open up socks and say, oh, socks. The sense that even as a kid, I remember the sense that even the adults in my little context appeared at least to be happier in the Christmas season. Really, I think the whole world seemed more joyful with all of the parties and the pageantries and the pretty decorations. I remember those Christmases as a kid. Now that we're older, perhaps our pageantries and parties are in part maybe an attempt to try to recapture the wonder which Christmases held for us as kids. Does it sometimes seem as though the Christmases today, you go through it and it's over and you put it all away and you just kind of have a sense of disappointment maybe that it didn't quite deliver as adults what you had hoped that it would? Am I the only one that feels that? Please nod like this someone so I can feel a little reassured up here. Maybe it's hard to get lost in the wonder of Christmas as adults because we're lost in the worry of our grown-up world. Our childhood naivety has given place to the adult awarenesses and realities, and yes, responsibilities, and now these compete with our grasp for a Merry Christmas. Can you relate to that at all? I definitely can. What if we realized that nothing much has changed? I was thinking about that this morning. What if I could provide some evidence that most of the stressors of my adult world today were actually present and in the news headlines 45 years ago when I was a 10-year-old little boy in Tennessee, blissfully celebrating as a little boy the wonders of Christmas? What if I could demonstrate that nothing really has changed? For example, in 1977, when I was a 10-year-old boy, Christmases were magical for me in those years. It's true, but a quick research of world events at that time revealed that our world was in crisis. And I'm sure the adults in my world, my parents, would have been aware of these crises. What are the things that you think of today in our current times? World conflict. The Euro missile crisis in 1977, the Euro missile crisis between the Soviet Union and the USA was heating up during that time. American economics. In 1977, the deficit in the U.S. trade balance increased sharply. That was in the headlines. I read headlines about fuel shortages and increasing cost of fuel. I read a few lines about the Great Inflation, which was about a decade between the early 1970s and early 1980s. The Great Inflation was in the headlines. What's in the headlines today? Racial tensions in America were on the rise. There were quotes about racial tension from then Senator Joe Biden saying that non-orderly racial integration policies would cause his children to grow up in a racial jungle. Racial tensions back then. What about for Christians, religion in America, specifically Christianity? There was a quote from an article in Christianity Today which read, "Evangelicalism is currently experiencing serious tensions over the questions of revelation and Scripture." Interesting. World conflict, bad economy, racial tensions, Christianity in peril. It was all in the headlines in the 1970s, but it didn't diminish my little boy's Christmas joy at all. And you know why, don't you? That's right. It was all about perspective. It's all about what I was focused on. It's all about what my reality was and what dominated my awarenesses and my realities. What if the joy of Christmas for us today is found not in utopian circumstances, but is experienced by an awareness that is captured in our popular carol, which we sang this morning, "Joy to the World. The Lord has come." Amen. Joy to the world. The Lord has come. I don't think you're getting it just yet. The Lord has come. What if that could be my present reality? As I read the Christmas narrative in the Gospels, there is a verse that captures this tension between reality and rejoicing. The verse is in Matthew 1:23, which reads, "Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which being interpreted is God with us. As you know, this is a quote by the angel Gabriel from the prophet Isaiah's writing some 700 years earlier. And he is speaking this to Joseph in a dream. You remember that Joseph is the troubled and perplexed man who is engaged to be married to the virgin who has been found with child. And Joseph, not knowing what to think or who to believe, is just planning a quiet annulment to their betrothal because he knows that Mary is expecting and he knows that it's not his baby. And Gabriel has been sent to reassure Joseph that the sudden turn of events are in fact of God's sovereign, eternal plan and is in fact a fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy A virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son. And they shall call his name Emmanuel, Joseph, which means, Joseph, God is with us. In the darkest moment of your life, Joseph, the circumstances which seem to be unraveling your plans are actually the fulfillment of what God is overriding and superimposing in your world today. Things that are really distracting you and discouraging you and overwhelming you, Joseph, in reality, I've come to tell you, no, you got the wrong perspective. God is with you. God's not just with you, he's with us. And you are a key player, Joseph, in this drama. Joseph was about to miss the joy of Christmas because of perspective. Things appeared to be very bad, when in fact things were never better. God is coming to be with us. Joseph was about to miss the joy of Christmas because of perspective. His plans were falling apart, when in fact God's plans were coming together, proving that God is with us. Joseph was about to miss the joy of Christmas because of perspective. Life in Nazareth was meager. He was poor. He planned to marry and maybe just eke out an existence. That's about the best he could hope for. But God knew where he was. God knew what he had planned for him and Mary. And Joseph was about to know the joy that God is with us. And I'm guessing that when we are grasping this year to experience the wonder of Christmas, but not quite capturing the feel, that maybe it's because we are lost in the details. And could it be that we're missing the big picture? That Christmas means God is with us. Hey guys, God is with you. God is with me, and I am preaching to myself this morning. I need this truth this morning. God is with us. Look at this verse again. Well, you're not looking at it because you're in Luke chapter 1, right? Maybe we'll get there. Listen to this verse again. A virgin shall be with child. This is Gabriel's message to Joseph. A virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son. And they shall call his, second phrase, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is being interpreted, God with us. See, I sometimes get too caught up in the problems of the first two phrases. The details that have Joseph really perplexed. A virgin shall be with child. That's my virgin. That's my betrothed. She's going to bring forth a baby. That's messing up my plans, my reality. All that this means really is there's an unmarried woman, more specifically an engaged to be married woman, who's going to suddenly be noticed as being expecting. In fact, she has been noticed, because it very clearly says in Matthew 1, before they came together, Mary was found with child. I think the way that phrase reads, it means it was discovered. That surely presents problems for the woman. It will surely cause suspicions for her betrothed, who happens to be of such character that he has a reputation, read it in Matthew chapter 1, of being a just or a righteous man. Yes, to be sure, there are a lot of messy details in these first phrases of Gabriel's message. A virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son. But the backstory is, and as incredible as it may seem, God is at work in these sordid details. And he is, in fact, not absent, missing in action. No, far from it. He is accomplishing his master plan revealed in the second phrase. Call his name, Joseph. Call his name Emmanuel, which is being interpreted, God is with us. Yeah, it really is about perspective, isn't it? When I learn to view the circumstances of my life, I can have the confidence that in spite of how reality presents, the underlying promise is not just for Joseph, but for you and for me, God is with me. If I'm his child, God is with me. And Jesus would later go on to say, I will never leave you. I will be with you to the end of the age. It is probable that someone here this morning feels alone, paralyzed by confusion, gripped by unexpected circumstances, controlled maybe by feelings of insignificance. And for you, the joy of Christmas 2022 has given way to the realities of your present experiences. And if that's true for you, let the simple drama of the Nativity remind you that God comes to unknown places with unexpected plans. That God chooses insignificant people for significant purposes, and God causes impossible predicaments to fulfill supernatural promises. And that's found right here in Luke chapter 1. It's also found in Matthew chapter 1, but let's start where the story really starts for us in our chronology. Luke chapter 1, verse 26 is our basis for these truths, which reads, in the 6th month, and that is a reference to the 6th month, second trimester, the end of the second trimester of Elizabeth's pregnancy, of whom we have learned about in the early verses of Luke 1. So in the 6th month of her pregnancy, the angel Gabriel, who also had appeared to her husband, Zacharias, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth. I said a moment ago, God comes to unknown places with unexpected plans. Nazareth was an uncelebrated, forgotten town off the beaten paths, even for Galilee. Some years later, from this storyline, when guileless Nathanael queried a friend about Jesus, he expressed the common Jewish sentiments in the first century. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? You remember that? Yet here in this sleepy town, Joseph and Mary's story began. Later it would return, of course, when Jesus was just a young boy. But this is where Gabriel comes to Nazareth, because Joseph and Mary were Nazarenes. Some of you about said amen right there, but I don't mean your church denomination. I mean, they were the original Nazarenes. And that term it was only a matter of time before the term Nazarene would be the moniker that the enemies of God and even demons would use to throw shade on their character and on Jesus' credibility, as the term Jesus of Nazareth just began to be slurred during the story that unfolds after this. Outside the New Testament references, we know very little, if anything, reliable about ancient Nazareth because it was so obscure. Eminent first century figures didn't know or speak much about it, at least not in prominent enough publications to be preserved for us today. Still, God's incredible plan was to go to this little unknown village in Galilee named Nazareth, and there select a young Jewish maiden, probably between the ages of 12 and 15, a girl, really, engaged to a young Jewish man, probably himself at least less than 20. And there God comes to Nazareth. Among the Jews, Nazareth's reputation was poor enough, but outside Israel, the town wasn't even known. Which is why each of the gospel writers, when they penned it, had to explain what Nazareth was. They couldn't just say, Gabriel came to the little village of Nazareth. They had to say to a village in Galilee named Nazareth, because when they first mentioned it, no one would have, outside of there, would have known where it was. For example, if I said to you, Shacktown, Tennessee, does anybody here know where that is? And yet that's where I grew up. Oh, it was called Shipetown Road, but we all affectionately called it Shacktown because that's what it was. Today we sing about, we did this morning, the little town of Bethlehem. But Bethlehem, humble as it was compared to Jerusalem, had a name that really dwarfed Nazareth. Bethlehem was a city with a history. It was the city of David. But Nazareth, can anything good come out of this little obscure place called Nazareth? Well, the answer to Nathanael's question is an emphatic yes, Nathanael. Absolutely something good. In fact, the best. Not only good, but the greatest. Because our God loves to produce his best in the places from which we least expect. So perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised when he makes the forgotten places in our own stories as places that he has chosen to be channels for our greater good and to accomplish his purposes. If this Christmas season you feel gripped by unexpected circumstances and maybe you're controlled by feelings of insignificance, and the joy of Christmas 2022 is given way to the realities of your present experience, if that's true for you, let the simple drama of this nativity remind you that Emmanuel comes to unknown places with unexpected plans. He comes to your Nazareth. And he finds you. Some of you may be like I used to be, or ashamed of your little hometown. You wouldn't want to take any of us on a little tour. If we were passing by and you said, I used to live off of this highway. Do you have time? Let's go. You wouldn't even mention it. Because it's kind of like Shacktown. It's not anything to brag about. And yet this story reminds us that God comes to the unknown places. And yes, it's to Nazareth, this obscure village in the hills of Galilee, to which Gabriel's is dispatched, and here he startles a betrothed virgin named Mary. Why? Because God not only comes to unknown places with unexpected plans, but God chooses insignificant people for significant purposes. In the 6th month, you see it, the angel Gabriel was sent to Nazareth. He came to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. So he's got a little prominence, right? Of the house of David. I mean, we got to have a whole chapter in Matthew 1 dedicated to this guy's ancestry, right? And also he came to appear to this place, to a virgin whose name was Mary. Now again, we know Joseph's ancestry, but nothing of Mary's family. The Bible doesn't even give us her parents' names. We read that she's a virgin. She's never had relations with a man. That she later confirms in verse 34. But that in itself was not significant before the story unfolds, because she's a conservative, she's a maiden in a Jewish conservative culture, and of course, she's not married, so she would be a virgin. She would not have had relations with the man. We read that she's engaged to be married. So she and Joseph are busy. They've had their betrothal. And that usually lasted about a year, and he would be busy preparing their home or where they would live. She would be busy preparing things for their home. But Mary is an unknown teenage girl living in an unknown little village in a country controlled by the great Roman Empire. Probably very few people outside of Nazareth even know of this girl, Mary, or even know about her. It's kind of hard to imagine, isn't it? But what's not hard to imagine is that God knows her. God knows right where she is. He sees this insignificant to others, Mary. And after some 400 silent years, God dispatches heaven's messenger, Gabriel, right down to little old Nazareth, to young Mary. Insignificant Mary. But after Gabriel's visit, the world is going to know about Mary. The angel came in unto her and he said, verse 28, "Hail thou that art highly favored." She probably was like Gideon and the judges. Like, "Who are you talking to me? I think you got the wrong address." Highly favored. That means honored. You have special honor. The Lord is with you. You are blessed among women. And she's probably blushing and wondering, what in the world is this strange person who just appeared in my room talking about? I mean, it clearly says in verse 29, she was troubled. And it doesn't say she was troubled at his appearing. It says she was troubled at his saying. What is he talking about? And the angel reiterates, verse 30, "Fear not, Mary, you have found favor." He uses the word again. You are highly honored by God. I wish that I could communicate the burden of my heart today for some of you who are feeling insignificant this morning. You came here to the big city from an unknown shack town or an obscure Nazareth. And nobody knows your parents' name, and they don't know your family's name, and nobody knows you at all. And you came here with some dreams, but there have been some circumstances that have kind of appeared in your life, and there's some stressors in your life right now, and you're really wondering, maybe I don't even know if I'm coming back next semester, honestly. I'm happy for others and my friends who seem to be well on track with their plans, but it just seems like God's left me here in little old Nazareth and nobody knows me, and I just probably need to just stay right in Nazareth. But the angel said, "You're favored. The Lord is with you." Did you catch that phrase? The Lord is with you. And you're blessed. And if you'll just pause and think about the miracles that God worked in your life to get you to this campus. I mean, the prayers that God answered, that you prayed, and your parents, and your grandparents, and your pastor, and your Sunday school teacher, and your youth worker have prayed for you to be here. And you knew when you arrived that, boy, this shouldn't even be happening, but God has worked it out. And see, some of you are sophomores or juniors, and last year you were right about this point. You were thinking, I don't know, maybe I won't even come back. Maybe I'll go back second semester, but I don't think I will. But God this summer said, I got plans for you. I'm with you. You're blessed. I'm honoring you. I'm at work in your life.
If this Christmas season you feel paralyzed by confusion and gripped by unexpected circumstances and controlled by feelings of insignificance, if that's true for you, let this simple story of Christ's birth and how it happened cause you to lift your head and celebrate that in the daily circumstances of your ordinary life, there is a master plan that is being shaped into reality. And while you or I may not readily see it, God is at work for you. God is at work in you, and He is in fact with you. Even today. Maybe Gabriel hasn't yet been dispatched to your little Nazareth. But God's got him in queue, ready to come at the right time. I promise you. God chooses. This story of God selecting Mary gives us the hope that God chooses insignificant people for significant purposes. I won't get to the last point. But such is the biography of many. But here's a story that I want to leave you with that you may not know, but perhaps you should. It's a story of an unknown young man who lived in the 19th century that God found and purposed to use his life to accomplish significant plans. This man was born March 27 in 1853 in Albion, Michigan, to a very poor family who lived in a log cabin on a farm, small farm. His father, Jared, was a Methodist class leader, so he was raised in a Christian home. His mother, Octavia, also a very committed Christian. Growing up, this boy had two half-sisters and also a brother. His brother, LJ, in fact, did achieve some prominence by becoming a lawyer out west in Missoula, Montana. Because of the dad's health being fragile, this young boy, his siblings, had to help out a lot on the farm, carrying really the burden of the work. Growing up, he was an extremely, extremely shy, backward young man. But at age 17, a little bit early, he began his studies at a Methodist college in Michigan. And he did so on the $50 that his parents could give him after selling a calf from their farm, because they believed that God had some significant plans for their son. He continued, even though he was in college, he continued to work on the family farm in the summer, never stopping his studies, which he would carry on during the night. Growing up in a religious family, a Christian family, he was very religious, of course, but he had a defining experience of conversion at age 19 through the prayers of his fiancée with whom he was corresponding, Lucy. She'd been praying for her unsaved boyfriend, soon-to-be husband. But at 19, he confessed sins and came to faith in Jesus Christ and began a relationship with the Lord, living his life now for God. Soon after his conversion, the young man received a call to preach. Shortly after that, at age 23, he and Lucy were married. Right after his marriage in 1877, he went on to a career in ministry with the Methodist Michigan Conference, assigning him to a circuit of churches, not just one, but several, of which he was the pastor. It is said that as a preacher, he was not a loud preacher. Remember, he was very shy growing up, and he was not a loud preacher, very shy, unimpressive, even unimpressive to look at. He was short, about 5 foot 4 inches, so he weighed 120 pounds. First impression upon strangers was almost always unfavorable. Still, in that first pastorate, the young, shy preacher demonstrated enough qualities that they allowed him to continue his circuit ministry in the Michigan Conference. It was while pastoring in the early 1880s, that there was a pivotal point in his life. He'd long been wrestling with the inner bent to sinning. And it was under the ministry of William Taylor, who had become one of the latest, later would become a great missionary bishop for the Methodist Church, that this man was entirely sanctified in a revival at one of his own churches that he pastored. And God really began to turn his life. This boy growing up in a cabin, poor farm in Michigan, worked hard all his life. God's at work in his life. In fact, at the age of 27, he published his first book. He titled it, Christ Crowned Within. He had to sell off some of his own furniture to finance the publication. He didn't have the money. In 1887, the Michigan Conference permitted him to step out of the pastorate so he could follow the calling of an evangelist. The following year, in his mother's kitchen, he started a Christian periodical, a publication that would be devoted to the promotion of spreading scriptural holiness. Continuing as an evangelist and a writer, in his mid-30s, he went through some periods of adversity when he and his family were hit hard by health crisis, disease, sickness. There was financial woes that came to them as well. The worst of all the blows came when his wife, Lucy, died after a long illness where he had cared for her, been engaged in ministry, trying to take care of the children. Of course, she left him now with 2 small children to care for. So 2 years later, he remarried and moved from Michigan to live in southern Ohio. Though he'd been in ministry for more than a decade now, his biographer, A.M. Hills, once remarked that he was a little bundle of nerves and brain and heart, all alive and on fire for God and holiness. That passionate ministry continued, though it began to take its toll on the young revivalist. Someone observed, it seems he was indeed never stopping the work of the Lord to rest. And probably that's true, because while living in Ohio, he set up a publishing house for holiness literature in the YMCA building. He established the Salvation Park camp meeting. He called for and initiated holiness missionary work, enlisting missionaries through his paper and his camp meeting and raising funds for the missionaries to send them out. In fact, 2 of the great missionaries that he influenced were Charles and Letty Kalman, that he influenced to leave their plans and go to Japan and establish the Oriental Missionary Society, which continues even today. In September of 1897, the International Holiness Union and Prayer League were organized in this minister's home. And Seth C. Reese was elected, and this man elected as vice president. And it later turned out to be the Pilgrim Holiness Church, which would eventually help form the Wesleyan Church. At the turn of the 20th century, he purchased a 2-acre tract of land containing 2 large buildings. And in 1900, Martin Wells Knapp founded God's Bible School here. The following year, he built a new tabernacle on the campus for his camp meeting. And God's Bible School later became known as God's Bible School and College. By early 1901, physically spent and exhausted, Martin Wells Knapp caught a typhoid fever, and he died here in the city of Cincinnati, perhaps, I'm not sure, on these grounds, on today, December 7, 1901, 121 years ago, at the age of 48. I'm certain that his poor father and mother on that little farm in Michigan, raising their family in a log cabin, never had any idea that Martin Wells Knapp would found one of the oldest continuing Bible colleges in the nation. I feel like I'm giving a PR speech now. That has sent insignificant people just like him, and insignificant people just like me, and maybe some of you feel that way too, into our world, until where the saying that is on the sign at the bottom of the street is literally true: the sun never sets on the students of God's Bible School. They are around the world today. I would tell you that God chooses insignificant people for significant purposes, in obscure places for prominent reasons. A Nazareth, a Mary. And he takes, I can't preach it, but he takes impossible situations and accomplishes supernatural realities. The virgin birth of the Son of God, which brought Emmanuel to us. Because Gabriel's final message to Mary was, Mary, with God, nothing shall be impossible. You need to write that out and put it on your mirror. You need to quote that back to the devil. You need to make that the motto and the life verse for all that God has purposed and planned for you. No, I'm not going to quit. Yeah, from an obscure place. But God has unexpected plans. Yeah, I'm insignificant, but God's fashioning me for significant purposes, his purposes. Yes, the predicaments are impossible, but God is with me, and he will help me to fulfill the supernatural plans that he has for my life. For Mary, for Knapp, and for you. The message of Christmas, but for every day, is God is with us. God is with us. Amen. You're dismissed.
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.